Number 10. Batgirl and Batman. Did you think you were safe from the rooftop aggressive "you're not my real dad" lovemaking scene of the animated Killing Joke adaptation? Well, think again. The Killing Joke adaptation made some changes to the Barbara storyline, as there is a circle out there who feel that the Killing Joke is misogynistic, and that as a female comic fan you should not like it. No one tells me what to do. I love the Killing Joke. The solution was to open the movie with Batgirl and have her have a plot about spiraling out of control when it came to violence and her anger. This culminated in her mounting Bruce on a rooftop when he confronted her, and the two having sex. And then her getting really weird about it, and him too. And then she gets shot and paralyzed, which places her firmly in love interest who got hurt territory, which is in no way better. But don't tell Brian Azzarello that. He will yell at you and call you a aka kitty cat. Look it up, it happened. Now this movie involved Bruce Timm, who has long liked the idea of Barbara having a crush on Bruce. He first hinted at it in Batman the Animated Series. And okay, but it's very much his headcanon that keeps making its way into canon, because he has the power. It also made it into the Batman Beyond verse, where she would miscarry his child. Sleeping with your son's love interest, and one of your close friend's daughters. Classy. Number 9. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Of course we're going to talk about the incestuous relationship between twins Wanda and Pietro Maximoff from the Ultimate Universe. That is Earth 1610. This is a relationship that occurred cause edgy and cause it would make you care more about Wanda. This is one of those facts about the Ultimate Universe that people will never forget. It's up there with the Blob eating the Wasp, and then Giant Man eating the Blob, Tony and Black Widow's sex tape, Miles Morales. It also was odd cause the comic would shame Captain America for being squicked out by this. It would be all like, Capsicle, get with the times, banging your sister in the bushes while Wolverine watches, it's what the kids want. Boost sales. Number 8. Nightwing and the Huntress. Nightwing would begin a flirtation with Helena Bertinelli, the Huntress, after she was reintroduced in Cry for Blood, after first having been reintroduced in 1989 after her character had been tweaked post-Crisis, that being Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now some of you may be saying, big deal, who cares? And big deal indeed. The only awkward thing here was that Barbara didn't really like her at first, and then she called him once after he'd spent the night with the Huntress and he was super awkward about it. But in the pre-Crisis world, where these two were raised together as siblings, they would also have a flirtation as well. Cause why not? Every story can just be flowers in the attic. VC Andrews was onto something. I mean, you could argue maybe the two didn't view each other that way, but at the same time many have the knee-jerk don't go there reaction. I mean, she was supposed to be the Batgirl of Earth 2, so would that extend to, no, leave it alone, it's over.
Up next, number 7, Spider-Man. When we think of Spider-Man's love interest, we immediately think of Mary Jane Watson and Gwen Stacy. But those are not the only women that Peter has been romantically linked with over the years. Being the charming, intelligent, funny, and kind-hearted hero he has attracted the interest of many gals, including the likes of Black Cat Felicia Hardy and Carol Danvers, plus a lot of regular non-powered individuals. Perhaps one of his most promiscuous turns was when he was at the mercy of his own pheromones and kept hooking up with Cindy Moon, aka Silk, who, because of being bitten by the same radioactive spider as him, shared similar pheromones with him, and the two ceaselessly want to jump each other's bones. Or webs, rather. It was so bad and so uncontrollable that they had to stop working together. They couldn't even be friends despite both of them really wanting to. Now that being said, Spidey's sex life with Mary Jane Watson has included a whole lot of cheeky bedroom antics over the years. He's never been afraid of getting creative to spice things up, leaving us with a whole lot of flirty fun panels that imply that Peter and MJ get some action off panel.
Number 6. Magneto and Rogue. Magneto and Rogue are actually a pretty iconic couple, and yet for many people when they see them they react with ew. So what is the pull between Rogue and the Master of Magnetism? It started in the Savage Land as kind of a fling, but then became a full-blown relationship in the alternate timeline Age of Apocalypse. And that bled back into the main verse, where they have hooked up multiple times, and she even had a thing for his clone. Joseph wasn't his clone, it was a whole thing. So why is this a thing? Cause it's weird. When you see people in forums they gripe about it, but at the same time there must be a group of people who like it. How old is Magneto? It's nebulous. I mean, it varies. Also, some people age him up just because of his gray hair, or they try and actually fit everything into a timeline. But in a realm where people are hooking up with vampires and people as old as Wolverine and Mystique, who are we to judge? I mean, I know who, people on the internet. But honestly, these two have had some interesting storylines. I know he's not Gambit, but it's okay. You know she'll always bounce back to Gambit, their endgame.
And at number 5, Constantine. John Constantine is yet another character on our list who is sexually fluid. And yes, while he is bisexual, the fluidity that we're talking about is not his sexuality. It's the fact that he is into both humans and demons. And technically, after having a blood transfusion, he is half demon himself. Anyway, Constantine has had quite the love life. Aside from getting busy with a handful of demons over the years, he has hooked up with Santana, Huntress, Nicholas Nolan, Nightmare Nurse, and a very ripped fellow named Oliver who he dated while in New York City. What a hunk.
Number 4. Rogue and Deadpool. Deadpool and Rogue were on the same team that Deadpool actually bankrolled, Uncanny Avengers, and she would actually find herself drawn to him, and the two would share a kiss that would somehow involve the transference of his appearance to her, which really, that's not a power, but it's actually just a manifestation of what his powers do to him. Still, it leads to a sweet moment where she tells him that she doesn't care what he looks like. She would ultimately be repelled by his more brutal nature, but would tell Gambit that he was a great kisser. Maybe because he was less attractive, he actually had to, hone his technique. Deadpool is a character who will just be thrown into romances, cause he needs love. Can there be a permanent love for Deadpool? Can there be permanent love for anyone? Is love dead?
In at number 3, Johnny Storm and Medusa. This hookup certainly shocked fans of the Uncanny Inhumans, especially considering that Johnny was already in an established relationship with Crystal, the element-controlling Inhuman royal family member. However, in 2016, during issue number 8 of the Inhuman series, Johnny had flipped the script and hooked up with Crystal's sister Medusa. This is like a comic book soap opera. At the time, she wasn't with Black Bolt anymore, and as fate would have it, the pair instantly clicked. Of course, it didn't last long when Crystal found out. Then when Black Bolt returned, things got even more awkward with Johnny deciding to just leave the Inhumans to avoid any friction altogether. Probably a good move.
Number 2. Quentin QUIRE and GWENPOOL. Quentin QUIRE is one of the new X-Men. He debuted in New X-Men number 134 in 2003, and he is/was, I'm not leaving myself open to anything, an Omega level mutant. He would end up dating GWENPOOL, the character created because of the popularity of a Deadpool variant cover, who was from our universe, like the real world, and had meta abilities, but found herself thrown into the comic book world. So this relationship happened when they were both on the West Coast Avengers. I mean, I get why she fell for him, with her penchant towards bad boy Edge and Danger, but why him to her? Well, she's more stable on the Avengers, less manic. However, she appears to have broken up with him as of Gwenpool Strikes Back via text. That series is an odd meta-thesis on why Gwenpool should exist, which intends to prove it cause she exists. She's lucky Quentin is stable. Breaking up with people via text, not the most endearing. Number 1. Captain Marvel / SHAZAM and STARGIRL. That's right, love for Billy Batson. SHAZAM for a period was working with the JSA, the Justice Society of America, and on that team was STARGIRL. Now, most people don't know Billy's true identity or the fact that really he's a young teen, but Courtney did, and she was surprised to find they were actually the same age. The two had crushes on each other, so he actually proceeded to ask her out. The problem, whenever he was at HQ, he was SHAZAM, so he looked like an adult asking out a teenage girl. The rest of the team did not react well. They thought that he was a creep, and it really hurt Billy's feelings and put a damper on their romance. Billy actually broke up with her and left the team rather than reveal his secret identity. And they didn't even get back together when the team found out that he was actually her age. It was sad. Judgment killed their love.
In at number 10, SHAZAM and STARGIRL. A lot of the superheroes close to SHAZAM don't know that he's actually a teenager trapped in an adult's body. While working with the JSA, he and the teen STARGIRL started getting, a little bit closer, and while the two were stuck in a different dimension, their powers were stripped away, so the adult SHAZAM was in his teen form of Billy Batson. Other than in this scenario, these two superheroes hooking up was just plain weird, which is also why we would have never seen this coming regardless of how close they were before this. They worked collaboratively to escape this dimension and even sealed it with a kiss. Although once returning to the JSA, they were kinda really weirded out by seeing an adult SHAZAM hitting on the teen STARGIRL, so definitely a short-lived hookup. In at number 9, Black Widow and Winter Soldier. After many had thought that Bucky Barnes was dead for sure, he made a miraculous comeback as the Winter Soldier in 2005. Bucky had spent his time away working with the Soviet Union as their top assassin, and during that time he had begun a relationship with Natasha Romanoff. Although because they were both part of a secret Soviet organization, their brains were constantly being messed with, which led to the Winter Widow couple forgetting that they had even been together. When Bucky had his brief stint as Captain America, he and Natasha worked hand in hand on a lot of missions, but the Black Widow was brainwashed yet again to be an assassin. Bucky, on the other hand, was able to break out of this mind control and remember their relationship, but Natasha remembered everything except their hookups. Oof. Oh, sorry, I don't remember. In at number 8, Hawkeye and Wasp. In another surprising hookup that we never saw coming, we have the odd pairing of Hawkeye and the Wasp. Written by the sort of hated Chuck Austen, when he was working on the Avengers comic books, he drove fans insane with the way that he took the characters out of context. He would often write in storylines for characters that just didn't fit them. Fans couldn't believe how out of left field this relationship was between the two friends who literally had no build up to this really random hookup. Even Captain America and Hank were questioning why the pair were embracing each other at the start of Avengers issue 83 volume 3. Thankfully this didn't last long because Chuck was, well, removed from his job, as was the hookup.
Number 7. Tony Stark and Black Widow. Now this isn't weird at all really, these two both hook up a lot, so it would seem more of an inevitability that they would have dated at some point. She was introduced in the Marvel Universe as a femme fatale villain in the Iron Man comics after all. However, what is weird is how little people think about it. These two dated for a while in the 80s, and it was a low-key serious thing. Yeah, it was treated as a sexy thing, you know, like kinky, keep the suit on style stuff, but the two would also talk and go to events together. One of the great things about Tony is that he's not very judgmental, and for people with a past like Natasha, that's a really relaxing trait to have in a partner. Tony's had a lot of romances people really don't seem to remember. He was not an A-list character pre-2008, don't let blogs fool you. People knew who he was, but C-list maybe. That's not shade, just fact. You can be cool on the C-list. Black Widow for her part has more iconic canonical romances such as Hawkeye, Daredevil, the Winter Soldier, which seriously MCU, major missed opportunity. Why bring it up in Civil War if you weren't going to do anything? Yeah, there's still time, but seriously, all those peak interest opportunities.
In at number 6, Nightwing and Catwoman. Now I get that this is a superhero hookup video, but Catwoman has done heroic things before, so let's just give her the benefit of the doubt. Back in 1996 for Nightwing issue number 52, Catwoman and Nightwing had a very unusual and unexpected encounter. The hookup between them didn't exactly come from a place of hidden affection either. Catwoman wanted to make Batman jealous, and when Grayson ran into her at a warehouse, she took full advantage of this opportunity. Nightwing is trying to switch the focus to the danger at hand, but Catwoman is only focused on this bizarre jealousy scheme. Regardless of the intentions on both ends, they both engaged in this secret love affair and then agreed not to let Bruce know. Like he wouldn't find out eventually.
Number 5. Thor and the She-Hulk. This sure is a relationship that is happening/happened. We're dealing with a modern era Jennifer here, so the one who's more reminiscent of the Hulk than ever. She looks like him, struggles with her transformations like him, and also has a bit less control, though she's getting that back, like him. Some would argue in their move to modernize her by making her quote unquote ugly, which she isn't actually, just buff, and that opens up a whole other can of worms. They've made her more Hulk-like than ever. But you know who digs it or dug it before Carol beheaded him? Thor. Thor helped Jennifer regain some control over herself and is super into how mighty she is. Now they can smash together in more ways than one. I'm so sorry. Some would deem this weird because it just kind of seems to come out of nowhere, like who can help Jennifer? I know, Thor. Why? Of course for some this is perfect, and these two have had some really sweet moments. And when they combine abilities like with Gamma Lightning, that's pretty cool.
In at number 4, Batman and Black Canary. Typically the masterful fighter Black Canary is known for her relationship with Oliver Queen, although when it came to Frank Miller's Dark Knight and All-Star Batman and Robin, he shocked fans with a surprising hookup. The random hookup was brief and fleeting, but regardless was filled with an intense comic book hookup passion. Black Canary started to fall for Batman simply for his ability to fight off criminals using just his fists, which makes sense considering how notable of a fighter the Black Canary is. Although we're guessing this relationship didn't last long because the first thing Batman said when kissing her, "I haven't kissed a smoker in weeks, not since Selena." Way to kill the vibe, dude. Bringing up your ex on the first kiss? Man.
And at number 3, Nightwing. Nightwing is often considered to be one of the hottest superheroes out there. Girls and guys go gaga over him. And over that booty of his. Even now that he's running with that whole Rick Grayson thing, he's still pretty darn hot. So if fans are this obsessed with him, imagine the reception that he gets in the DC universe. Running around, being objectified by every fangirl and fanboy out there. And also by other heroes and villains too. Dick Grayson has the uncanny ability of dating someone in the DC universe and managing to still be friends with them after they break up. While some argue that Batgirl Barbara Gordon is his one true pairing, others are big shippers of him in Starfire. Regardless, he has dipped his toes in many characters' honeypots over the years, which includes, but is not limited to, Zatanna, Harley Quinn, Huntress, Sonya Branch, Agent 8, Catwoman, wow, Alfred's niece Daphne Pennyworth, Raven, and of course, Batgirl and Starfire, the latter two being the most iconic of his relationships.
In at number 2, Captain America and Scarlet Witch. Yep, you heard that right. This hookup was certainly a bizarre moment considering the fact that these two for a long time were considered by fans as more of a mentor-mentee type relationship. Because of this, it came as a huge surprise that a romance was starting between them. Although Wanda had actually been crushing on Cap for a long time. In fact, ever since the beginning of her time with the Avengers, the two shared many close calls that built up to this passionate yet short-lived hookup. However, it only ended between them because Captain America didn't think it was a great idea. The feeling was not mutual. Wanda ended up using her reality warping powers to cause a reaction of events that culminated with the Avengers Disassembled storyline, which yet again reinforces the idea that you should never date your coworkers. Last but not least, in our number 1 spot, Doctor Strange and Elektra. Set to be released March 4th, 2020, the cover for the Savage Avengers issue number 11 has raised a lot of eyebrows. The comic book is meant to reveal the horrific secret behind Kulanga's power, but the real question most fans will have is this hookup between Elektra and Doctor Strange. It's just bizarre. We don't know all the details as of yet, but what we do know is that Clea and Matt Murdock are probably equally out of the loop on this one. In the previous issue, Strange, Doom, and Conan the Barbarian will attempt to kill Kulangath, but for the next issue to have this as the cover, something had to have gone down. I guess we'll have to wait and see though, if this is going to be either short-lived or long-term. Who's to say? Although I want to hear what you have to say about it. Leave me a comment down below if you think their relationship is going to go on. Is Matt Murdock going to come back and be like, bro, you stole my girlfriend, what's up?
And at number 10, Deadpool. He might have a face that only a mother could love, but his personality speaks volumes. Or maybe it's his gusto in bed. Dude has a reputation. Deadpool, aka Wade Wilson, is a sexually fluid fellow. In 2013, he was confirmed as being pansexual, with one of his co-creators stating that he is whatever sexual inclination his brain tells him he is in that moment, and that he is the epitome of inclusive. Now that being said, one's sexuality has nothing to do with how promiscuous they are or how sexually active they choose to be. Deadpool just so happens to be a pretty sexually active guy though. He's had a lot of love interests and hookups over the years, and he is not only hooked up with humans, but he is hooked up with demons too. No joke. His romances include Vanessa Carlyle, aka Copycat, the demon Shikla, and Death, aka the entity Death, Lady Death, Mistress Death, Thanos' Death. Yeah, her. And many, many more too. Moving on to number 9, the Hulk. Hulk smash. Sorry, I had to. The Hulk has quite the colorful history when it comes to his past romances. While the 616 version of the Hulk is relatively tame in the romance department, his alternate versions are incredibly promiscuous, and pretty nasty about it too. The Old Man Logan version had sex with She-Hulk, which led to a whole family of inbreds. He would claim, I quote, "But who else was I going to mate with besides my first cousin? Jenny She-Hulk was the only woman out there who could take the damn pace." Ugh, nasty. The Ultimate Universe 1610 Hulk is also a total horn dog. For starters, he lacks all morals and tries to rape Betty Ross, and he is also a cannibal. Plus he hooked up with a harem of women in Tibet, so the big mean fella does get around. But what about in the 616? Well, Hulk once had sex with Dormammu's sister, Umar, which proved to be too much for the mighty green monster to handle. Their hookup lasted a measly 6 minutes before she exhausted Hulk, and he was so tired that he even reverted back to his Bruce Banner form. I mean, she is a demon, so maybe cut him some slack on that one, guys? Moving on to number 8, Harley Quinn. For a very long time, Harley Quinn was the Joker's girl, but then she realized how toxic of a relationship she was in and left him, although he on numerous occasions had technically left her by being dismissively homicidal with her, so. During that period, Harley ended up dating around somewhat, which culminated in the series Harley's Little Black Book. From Instant Kisses to other realms of hot and heavy, the series outlines a bunch of quirky adventures that Harley finds herself on with other characters in the DC universe. This includes an obsession with Wonder Woman, a kiss with Green Lantern, and also rubbing dirties with Lobo. She also hooked up with Nightwing in the Batman and Harley Quinn animated film, and that was a doozy for sure. These days though, her heart belongs to Poison Ivy, despite the two of them having a bit of an on and off again relationship.
In at number 7, Cyclops and Emma Frost. This hookup isn't so much something that we didn't see coming, but more so something that fans really wanted to ignore ever happened. Emma's character may have been altered a bit, but deep down she's still this manipulative and arrogant lady. She only started hooking up with Cyclops because she knew it would make Jean Grey angry, and you wouldn't like her when she's angry. The White Queen did everything in her power to play games with Scott, eventually driving his character into a very bad place before she eventually embraced her role as a villain, where she should always remain.
Moving on to number 6, Batman. Bruce Wayne has been around. It may seem that the Caped Crusader is rather prude thanks to his strong moral code, but apparently the Dark Knight has no issue with getting loose around the ladies, so to speak. Aside from his most iconic romance with Selina Kyle aka Catwoman, Batman has had his fair share of relationships and hookups. There's Talia al Ghul, whom he had his son Damian Wayne with. There's Poison Ivy, who seduced him a lot. Nocturna, Gillian Maxwell, Penumbra, Queen Bee, and a bunch of other ladies who aren't heroes or villains. He's a billionaire stud as Bruce Wayne, that's for sure. And hey, he's gotta hook up in order to maintain that playboy persona of his and keep his true identity a secret, right? Yeah, that's why he does it, totally.
In at number 5, Daredevil and Black Cat. During the comic book Amazing Spider-Man number 677, Black Cat had been arrested, so Spider-Man had called on Daredevil for an epic team-up to help free her. Although Black Cat didn't really need either of their help. She was already able to break out of prison on her own and even set up a trap for the two. I mean, what a nice thing to do for somebody that wanted to free you from jail. Oh, and by the way, the trap? She rigged 2 buildings to crash down on top of them, leaving both superheroes quite helpless. And at the end, they were able to sort out their differences, but for whatever reason, Daredevil felt this attraction for Black Cat. The two eventually hooked up, but other than that single surprising time, they didn't develop the relationship into anything more. I mean, thank God. She's evil lady.
And at number 4, She-Hulk. She-Hulk often gets a bad rep for having hooked up with several individuals over the years, even to the point where she brought up the obvious double standard that she's constantly faced with when she was in bed with Tony Stark. Jennifer Walters has had several lovers over the years, some of which she pursued thanks to her desires as She-Hulk over her desires as Jen Walters, something that she observes in She-Hulk issue 18 after hooking up with Clay Quartermain. Other romances include John Jonah Jameson Jr., who she would marry, although find out afterwards that Eros had manipulated a lot of that relationship, Hercules, and of course the highly contested Juggernaut hookup. That's a hookup right there for you.
Number 3, Black Canary and Batman. Now really there's nothing weird about this, but it is very out of left field. In the Bronze Age this was flirted with. Black Canary had a crush on Batman and he seemed to like her as well. It was a bit of a contrast to Ollie. Believe it or not, at the time, Bruce was the kind and considerate one. They would team up for a Brave and the Bold comic where she would end up tied to a chair in her underwear just cuz, and he would save her. Later in the All-Star Batman Frank Miller universe, her and Batman would have sex next to a bar that was burning down full of men that they had beat up. It probably smelled terrible. Honestly, they have potential, but if you take her away from Green Arrow, fans would riot. Even though that comic where they were married, he was, well, Ollie can be a bit trying, can't he? Give Bruce and Dina a chance. She's so solid and dependable and good with kids. They'd be such a power couple, and the world would tremble.
Moving on to number 2, Wolverine. Logan may be forever in love with Jean Grey, but that does not mean that he is celibate. Anything but. Perhaps his typically unrequited love is exactly what keeps him busy with being busy. His alternate versions have also kept themselves rather busy too, hooking up with a variety of heroines across the Marvel Universe, and in one case, Hercules in the Extreme X-Men series, where the two of them shared a kiss in issue 10 and everyone went crazy about it. But fret not, Logan has quite the list of romances in his 616 past. They include Carol Danvers, Storm, Dazzler, Black Cat, Domino, Squirrel Girl, and Mystique, to name a handful. And in those alternate universes, in case you were wondering, Elektra in the MC2, Red Sonja in What If issue 16, and Sue Storm in Exiles issue 91. Plus, of course, there is also his one true dream girl, Jean Grey, in multiple different universes, but most prominently in the Age of Apocalypse timeline. And last but not least, in at number 1, Tony Stark. When one describes Tony Stark outside of his superhero persona of Iron Man, one of the adjectives that may come up is promiscuous, combined with the noun playboy. And that definitely wouldn't be incorrect. He is a bit of a horn dog. So, who has seen what's under that iron suit? Well, there is Pepper Potts, of course, but he also once dated Black Widow Natasha Romanova for a hot second before finding out that she was a spy. But the two in the Ultimate Universe got way more hot and heavy than that. There was even a sex tape. Speaking of the Ultimate Universe, he had a pretty frisky sex scene with Justine Hammer, who he would later indirectly kill. Back to the 616 now. Tony has had a relationship with Janet Van Dyne multiple times. He slept with Maria Hill in the Invincible Iron Man Volume 5 issue 10 when they thought the end of the world was near, and during Civil War when Tony was recruiting, it was implied that him and Emma Frost had some sort of romantic history. And of course there are plenty of other normal non-superpowered women out there who have knocked boots with Tony in the past. Like, a lot. From socialites to doctors to women who have been used to manipulate him and his business, Stark is quite the laundry list. And he does not discriminate.